In this session, we'll study the biological importance of phospholipids, neutrolipids, and glycolipids. Sorry, phosphate heads are hydrophilic in nature, whereas the lipid tail is hydrophobic. So this is what we have to understand. The phospholipid molecule is made up of phosphate head and lipid tail. Phosphate head is hydrophilic and the lipid tail is hydrophobic in nature. Now this property results in the uh, formation of the spherical structure which actually led to the formation of cells during the course of evolution, chemical evolution. Now that is a different thing, and here you remember in biological membranes, you take the example of plasma membrane. Probably you heard about the Singer and Nicholson's model of plasma membrane, which is commonly called fluid mosaic model. So the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane is made up of lipid bilayer. So every plasma membrane is made up of two layers of phospholipids. So every layer has two surfaces. One surface which faces extracellular environment where there is water, and another faces the intracellular environment where also you find water in the form of cytoplasm. So the phospholipid molecules are arranged in such a way that phosphate heads always face the water. That means the inner layer, in the inner layer, the phosphate heads face the cytoplasm, and on the outer layer, phosphate heads face the extracellular environment because they are hydrophilic, whereas the lipid molecules always move away from the water. Therefore, you find the lipid layer at the center. In this way, plasma membrane is said to be a trilaminar structure with outer phosphate head layer, inner lipid layer, and again inner phosphate head layer. So that's how the phospholipids play a very important role in the structural aspect of the biological membranes. Now, phospholipids form membranes, as I already mentioned, and phospholipids work to provide pathways for various substances across membranes. Now, not only they are involved in the structure of membranes, they also play a vital role in the functioning of the membrane. Now, what is the function of the membrane? Membrane is involved in transportation of different kinds of molecules across it. So these phospholipid molecules are involved in the transportation of the molecules across the membrane. And the phospholipid bilayer readily allows essential molecules such as water, oxygen, carbon dioxide to cross the membrane. And with the combination of phospholipid and proteins, the cell is said to be selectively permeable, allowing only certain substances in freely and others via more complex interactions. Now, cell membrane is said to be a semi-permeable membrane because it will readily allow the movement of molecules like oxygen molecule, water molecule, carbon dioxide molecule, etc. across the membrane. But it will not allow the other complex molecules. Okay, so the membrane is said to be selectively permeable because it will allow only the necessary molecules to go inside or go outside of the cell. So that is achieved by the more complex interactions of the phospholipid molecules. Then phospholipids are responsible for the maintenance of chemical gradient across the cell membrane. So the ions, especially the ionic grade on outside and inside of the cell membrane is different. So like this, phospholipids help in maintenance of gradient of different chemicals, which is essential for the normal functioning of the cell or body in general. They are also essential to regulate exocytosis, chemotaxis, and cytokinesis. Some phospholipids play a role in phagocytosis, working to surround particles to form phagosomes. So we know that phagocytosis is one of the method which exists in lower organisms like protozoans, poriferans, coelenterata, etc. And they actually produce a layer around the food particle, which are commonly called phagosomes. And in this process, phospholipids are involved. And phospholipids also contribute in endocytosis. Now, endocytosis is intake of water or fluid from outside to the inside of cells. And this results in the generation of vacuoles, especially in plants. Neutral lipids are simple lipids that consist of fatty acid and glycerol only. And neutral lipids include tri and diglycerides, waxes, and isoprenoid type of lipids, which we already studied in the previous session. Now, here, triglycerides are the major components of very low density lipoprotein and chylomicrons. So, VLDL, low density lipids, are not good lipids. So, triglycerides are the major components of this low density lipids, and they play an important role in metabolism as energy sources and transporters of dietary fat. Now, triglycerides are the main constituents of the body fat in humans and other vertebrates, and also in vegetable fat. So, the lipid which we find in human body or other vertebrate body or in the vegetable oils, vegetable fats, etc., triglycerides are the major components. They are also present in the blood to enable the bidirectional transfer of adipose fat and blood glucose from the liver and are a major component of human skin oils. So I am talking about the triglycerides, which are major component of oil which is produced by the skin glands, and they are part of the liver, and they are also involved in transfer of adipose fat and blood glucose from liver and to other parts of the body. Now, as I mentioned in one of the earlier sessions, lipid molecules are more energy rich than the carbohydrates. For example, approximately 1 gram, 9 kilocalories of energy can be produced from a gram of lipid, whereas carbohydrates produce approximately 4 kilocalories per gram. So it is almost double or 3 times than the carbohydrates. So lipids are more energy rich compared to the carbohydrates. Glycolipids, here we study the glycolipids. Glycolipids are lipids with carbohydrate attached by the glycosidic bond. Now they have a role to maintain the stability of the cell membrane and to facilitate cellular recognition. Now we know that there is something called cellular recognition. So that is achieved by the glycolipids. So glycolipids are mainly found on the surface, on the outer surface of the cell, and they mainly function as receptors. So the recognition, cell recognition is an important thing which is responsible for the identification of target cell by the hormones or many other things. So the cellular recognition is mainly achieved due to the glycolipids which exist on the surface of the membrane. And glycolipids are also involved in other things. As I already mentioned, the cellular recognition helps in cell-cell interactions. And second one is immune response. Glycolipids function within the body by the interaction between leukocytes and endothelial cells during inflammation. So, since they are involved in the process of inflammation, we can say glycolipids are associated with immune response. Selectins, a class of lectins found on the surface of leukocytes and endothelial cells, bind to the carbohydrates attached to the glycolipids to initiate the immune response. And another most important function of glycolipids is the 4 main types of human bloods. There is something called blood grouping or blood groups or blood types. You know that humans can be categorized into 4 blood groups: blood group A, B, AB, and O. Now, this difference These blood types are due to the different types of glycolipid molecules which exist on the surface of the RBC, which act as an antigen. So the blood grouping is mainly due to the type of glycolipid which is present on the RBC of the person. So this is about the importance of lipids, and these are some references which the student can use for further reading.